Welcome to Winning Retirement Television. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, and I'm joined today by Greg and Kristen Taylor of Legacy Retirement Group. Kristen, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. I love your blazer, by the way.
Thank you. Me too. We're matching, kind of.
We
We're
are.
coordinated. We could do family pictures together.
I think we should do that, actually. That would be awesome. Greg, how are you?
Fabulous.
See, we have so much fun on this show. That's what viewers say all the time. They just love watching the two of you together. It's just your chemistry, and there's always so much laughter. But I wanted to tell you, we actually had someone that called in. This is one of our viewers. And I think this is really interesting. This was actually a couple in their 60s, and they like their current advisor. But they're reaching out because they feel that their taxes in retirement are not getting enough as much attention. So I'm trying to say financial advisors aren't CPAs, but what should an advisor be doing regarding taxes in their retirement for those who are in their 60s? Greg?
You know, it's interesting. Even CPAs, Cynthia, aren't typically having conversations about what to do to be proactive with taxes. It's more reactive, where we are saying, okay, here's how much tax you owe, or here's how much refund you received this year. So they're more of what I would call a tax preparer. And really, if you're 60 and older, you really need to start having a tax strategy conversation.
Okay.
And the reason for that is we're just in a different era than we've ever been in our country. And, you know, recently we oversaw 34 trillion of national debt.
34 trillion.
34 trillion.
Wow.
With a T now, it's a big number.
It's still ticking.
It is. I mean, and,
Wow.
And then we've got the pressure on Social Security with the amount of workers for everyone collecting now, how long people are living. Medicare. Medicare costs have just gone up and up and up. The government's really hemorrhaging money on Medicare, on Medicaid. That's another area. And so with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on the national debt, that eats up about 80 cents out of every dollar the country collects. So when we really start thinking about this, there's a couple things we need to really get mindful of. And number one is to be aware of this.
Okay.
To just be aware. Be aware, first of all, that taxes can impact our retirement. It can impact our ability to be retired. It can impact our ability to live the way we want to live in retirement. Because just think, right now, if a couple, say, collectively in retirement has $100,000 a year income, with their standard deduction as a couple, they're going to be still in the 12% tax bracket.
Okay.
12%. A couple making $80,000 a year back in 2000 when Bill Clinton left office, they were in the 28% tax bracket.
Wow.
Think about that.
Wow. What a difference.
I mean, from 28 to 12,
Yes.
with that kind of income, that's a huge difference. It really is. So thinking, well, okay, if I have to pay 12% tax, I have $88,000 left to live on. What if that went to 25%? Now that $88,000 I have to live on goes down to $75,000. How can that impact your retirement?
Of course.
So that means that taxes can actually diminish our income. It can actually cause us to pay tax on our Social Security.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So,
RMDs can impact our taxes as well.
oh my goodness, this one right here, that RMD story, Kristen, that's a story that every one of you at home, if you've saved $250,000 in an IRA, 401k, or tax-deferred vehicle or more, someone should be having this conversation with you, because ultimately, a 60-year-old, let's just say they saved $500,000 in an IRA. Well, by the time they are 70, it's very likely that could be $1 million. So by the time you're 73, and you have to start taking, well, if you're 60 right now, you'd have to start taking at 75. But by the time you're 75, that could very easily become $1.5 million. And so what would the required minimum distribution be on that? A lot of people have no idea.
Right.
That's why we do our RMD report.
Okay.
So it lets people see, okay, with the reasonable rate of return, with what you saved, when you get to that RMD age, what could that actually look like? Be aware. Do you know
Absolutely.
what required distributions could look like and how they can impact your ability to be retired? How can that impact your Social Security checks? How can that impact your other income? All those things people haven't been taking account. So we do what we call a tax map, an RMD report, so people can be aware. Be aware of it. If you're aware and then you decide to do nothing about it, then it's on you.
Yeah.
It really is. But if you're not aware, well, at this point, if you've listened to today's show and you've heard us talk about it, so now you're aware and you need to think about doing something about it.
What about tax rates changing?
Oh,
So there's a change that happens every 4 years, right? A presidential
Absolutely.
change.
Absolutely.
And with that presidential change, typically there are political changes. And with political changes, a lot of times there's tax changes. And we know they're going to happen. Every so many years, those changes are going to happen. And things that previous administrations have done will expire, and new administrations will set up new things.
yes.
And a lot of times that includes spending. And for the government to spend, they have to tax us more.
Of
Yep.
course.
That's just a
course.
natural progression of things. So knowing that tax changes will happen, not are they going to happen or if they're going to happen, they are going to happen. And planning on that accordingly, I think, is important.
So what do we think will happen? So Cynthia, if I said, what do you think? Will tax rates stay just the same, status quo? Will they go down? Or will they increase? What's your thoughts?
My thought, they're going to increase. I mean, how could they not? With everything that's going on right now in the world, with our deficit being where it is, the trillions. I mean, of course, there's one thing to do: tax the taxpayers.
Well, for sure. And it's what's interesting. In the United States, there's about $37 trillion in tax-deferred retirement accounts. Well, the government's $34 trillion in debt.
Where are they going to get that money?
Exactly.
So let's not just sit back and wait. Let's be proactive. Proactive. Now, what's the easiest thing anybody can do? Do nothing.
Do nothing. Head in the sand.
Yes, head in the sand. And I will say that, there's some things that I can be a little lax on, especially when it comes to household chores.
Filter in the furnace.
That's the one that gets me, is remembering to change the daggone furnace.
No, really,
filter.
I called. I've just got to say this. I called
do you
the
have to say this?
HVAC company and I said, "Can you come out? Our furnace isn't working." So they come out, and I was upstairs doing things, and they come upstairs. Ma'am, when was the last time your furnace filter was cleaned? This may be your problem. This may be why your furnace isn't working.
Oh my goodness.
Because there's 15 inches of lint on it, I don't know what the big deal is.
As
No, I'm
the
kidding.
loving wife that I am,
Of course.
Greg, you didn't change the furnace filter. I even put an Alexa reminder in there.
So doing nothing does have consequences, folks. I'm just saying.
Okay, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
Yes. Be willing to break away from the crowd. So I think about lemmings and how lemmings will follow one another, and they'll go right off the cliff following each other because the one right in front of them is doing the same thing. And, my friend's deferring all their money into 401k, and they don't want to pay taxes today. Who wants to pay taxes? No, nobody. Nobody wants to pay taxes.
Exactly.
But guess what? It's like the old Fram oil filter commercial. Pay me now or pay me later, but folks, someday you're going to have to pay.
Yes.
Would you rather pay when rates are low, or would you rather pay when rates are high? I'd rather pay when rates are low.
Absolutely.
I really would. So you have to think about that, being willing to go ahead and be proactive, get the ball rolling, have a strategy. Also, just because your advisor doesn't want to help doesn't mean that you shouldn't deal with it.
Okay.
If they don't want to deal with it, maybe it's time to look for someone. In fact, I would say this. Recently, we've had so many people come in because they like their advisor, but what they don't like is they're not getting help when it comes to things like taxes.
Okay. Well, Greg, I know that you and Kristen have reserved some spots aside this week for new people coming in. Let's talk about what that is. I think you put together the tax map and the RMD report for those folks.
For sure. So if you're watching right now, before the end of today's show, just call. We're gonna set you up with the complimentary tax map RMD report. To claim your tax map and RMD report, just pick up the phone and call 614-336-7660.
Greg, thank you so much. And Kristen, thank you. To the viewers at home, that number to call, 614-336-7660, or grab your smartphone, click on that QR code at the bottom corner of your screen. That will take you right to Legacy Retirement Group's landing page, and you can claim your complimentary spot. Again, we're going to take a very short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. I have so much more with Greg and Kristen about how to plan your winning retirement when we return.
Welcome to Winning Retirement Radio with Greg and Kristen Taylor.
Kristen and I love doing Winning Retirement Radio.
You know, it's funny. Greg dragged me kicking and screaming to the radio show. He saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. I was scared to death. I couldn't even do a sound check. And he just convinced me, I really think it would be great for people to get the dynamic of us together.
I think it's cool that Greg and Kristen have a radio show. And I think it's cool that I work for a company with a public media presence.
It's a way to talk directly to people that I know are tuned in for specific information. And so for us, it's just, letting ourselves be us.
And of course, I'm a battered husband. I get picked on every week on the show.
It's like being a fly on the wall.
And a lot of our listeners just really enjoy my singing more than anything else on the show.
We kind of get a sneak peek.
I might just break out in song at any time.
Greg pretty much singing every radio show.
Ave Maria.
He says something that I think is funny. I call him out on it. He does me too. And I think that realness that we're able to provide is something that's different.
I love the radio show.
It's really cool to kind of see it from when it's being recorded to what it is when it's live.
We have a lot of fun.
It's one of my favorite things that we do.
It's certainly been a joy.
When people come into our office, they feel like they already know us.
Welcome back to Winning Retirement Television. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, joined today by Greg and Kristen Taylor of Legacy Retirement Group. And to our viewers at home, no matter what you think about cars, obviously they are a big part of our culture. They're in demand, and they're something that we need for the most part for transportation. But the great thing about cars, as you know, is that when there's something wrong, there's a warning light that comes on, and it tells you that something needs to be addressed. But unfortunately, when it comes to our investment accounts, there's not a warning light that says, hey, check your money alert. So Greg and Kristen, wow, let's talk a little bit about that, because obviously we can talk about cars, but how also that correlates with someone's retirement needing to be addressed and adjusted.
We know all about warning lights with cars.
Yes.
I picked on Greg last segment about the HVAC, but we had my oldest son, Christian, his car, he drives a little Toyota, and he mentioned his light was on, but he said his tire light. Okay. And he mentioned it to Greg, he mentioned it to me. I said, that's not my department. We have a traditional home. I don't deal with cars. I don't deal with maintenance. I don't deal with house repairs. I don't do it.
Okay.
So I said, go to Greg. He'll help you with your car issue. I'm not doing it. And Greg forgot about it. So then a week passed or so, and he went to get an oil change. And I said, while you're there, they should be able to figure out your tire and see if it's the bad weather or whatnot.
Yeah.
And I get a call, and they said, Mom, they can't fix my light. I have to come back. And I said, that's weird. They should be able to check your tire pressure. And he said, well, no, it's my engine light. And I said, Christian, that's a different light.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a red flag, get your car in immediately, not a tire light.
Right.
And so a couple conversations later, he said, well, I said it was my light. I said, you said it was your tire light. He said, well, then the engine light came on too, so I just figured it was just the same thing.
Oh my gosh.
I said, okay, we've got to teach you about engine lights. That's a warning that there's a deeper issue. And unfortunately, with retirement, we don't necessarily have those lights, right?
That's true.
And so our warnings may be something like you're overexposed to market risk. And how would you know that's a warning? Well, if you're seeing major fluctuations and you're already retired and you're drawing income from these dollars that you've saved, that's a major red flag. That's a warning that your exposure may be too great. And why is that? It's because you have to have more time to make up for those losses.
Absolutely.
If you're not putting money in, right?
For sure. And to know whether or not you are overexposed, you need to have your portfolio tested. And what we found with the car was that actually Christian had some lights put underneath his car at one of the local places, and they removed a fuse that was to the exhaust system that was really needed and necessary So they just had to replace that fuse and he was okay. Well, sometimes with your portfolio, it could just be a simple tweak. There could be an overhaul needed. It could be that, we just recently had a family come in, Cynthia. They scored a 35 between 1 and 99. That means
Okay.
that they weren't really willing to accept a lot of fluctuation in
Right.
their portfolio. Their current portfolio is an 84.
Wow.
It's a
Okay.
big difference.
That's
That
a
is.
huge
That's
difference.
huge.
And so immediately that set off a red flag to me. Okay, changes are absolutely necessary.
Absolutely.
Absolutely necessary. So in their case, I said, look, here's where you said you want to be. Here's where you are. Time to make some changes. And they were in total agreement. Changes needed to be made because when all the fluctuations happened, they were scared out of their minds. They just had always been taught, well, don't do anything. But they didn't do anything because they just didn't know.
Right.
So that
What
was
about-
a big one.
Yeah, what about this
That's a
one?
big one.
Warning, you may be exposed to inflation risk.
Yes, because, right now in banks, we're a little bit spoiled because some of the interest rates in banks lately have been pretty attractive, where you could get 5% or 4.5% in a money market, things like that, where what's kind of tricky though, is we had a checking account and savings account at a bank, and we noticed that we were still getting like that 0.1% interest. And Kristen inquired about it at the bank, and they're like, well, that's only on new money for the good rates.
Interesting.
So she said, that's fine. Our money will become new money at a different bank. And so she pulled it out and put it over there to get a good rate.
There you go.
So that's what happened. So sometimes you have to be a little bit more proactive on those bank accounts to make sure you're actually getting the best rates. But typically, one of the downsides of having too much money in the bank is that you don't keep pace with inflation. So having a huge chunk in the bank could be a lot of inflation risk over time, and you have to be cautious about that. Now, we do want people to have sleep well at night money in the bank.
Sure.
A retiree somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 we think is,
Depending on the overall budget.
yes, depending on the big picture, is pretty acceptable. But overall, making sure you're not overexposed to inflation risk is a big thing. And then warning, you may not have a safe plan for income. This is one of the biggest culprits we find in people that are retiring or who are already retired, is the broker. And I believe there's a lot of really good people in the brokerage world out there, so I'm not picking on the broker, but the broker's always been trained that stocks, bonds, and mutual funds fix every problem financially. That is just not the case. And so when you try to approach retirement the same way you approached pre-retirement accumulation phase, so to speak, you can run into a lot of trouble there because money reacts differently to withdrawals than it does accumulation.
Okay.
You can have the same exact investments in retirement and go through the same exact trends and ups and downs if that were to happen. And you could actually outlive your money because of those ups and downs where when you were accumulating, you barely noticed it. So that is a big key, not making sure that there's a warning light on your income.
Okay.
And that you might be overexposed to tax risk. We talked about that a lot in the past segment, but tax risk is where you are delaying your taxes until later and just hoping that they don't go up too much.
Okay.
What about having a proper health care plan?
Healthcare.
That's a big warning light.
Absolutely.
We talk about that a lot on the show.
It's
I think
so
it
needed.
affects so many families.
It does. And the average retiree, not including long-term care, will spend over $200,000 in their lifetime on health care.
Not including long-term care.
Not including long-term care.
Wow.
So that's a big one. And just making sure that you have a complete plan. Kind of lift up the hood, so to speak, look under there, and make sure that everything's okay.
Absolutely. Well, this is the perfect time for us to take our second commercial break. Would you agree?
I would.
All right. To our viewers at home, there's a number to call on your screen, 614-336-7660. What we're offering you today is the opportunity to lift up that hood. Let's see what's going on underneath the hood. Are you okay for retirement? Are you taking too much risk? You won't know unless you book your complimentary consultation with Greg and Kristen. That's what you're being offered today. All you have to do is one thing, is pick up the phone and call 614-336-7660. This call could change your life. It could change the trajectory of your retirement. If you're not on the right path, this is the perfect opportunity to find out how to correct that today. If you have your smartphone handy, go ahead, grab it. Click on that QR code at the bottom corner of your screen. That will take you right to Legacy Retirement Group's landing page. Don't miss the opportunity to claim this complimentary spot. We'll be right back after this very short commercial break.
They've got quite an extensive resume. Wow, so many years of management. Bet that was fun. So this job requires basic knowledge of the social media and video platforms, content creation, and SEO. How proficient are you in those areas?
Going back to work after retiring is not ideal. I'm Kristen Taylor with Legacy Retirement Group. If you've amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. We're in one of the greatest tax windows in history, so it makes sense to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. We specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and much more. Plan your retirement right. For your complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis, go to testmyretirement.com.
Welcome back to Winning Retirement TV. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, joined today by Greg and Kristen Taylor of Legacy Retirement Group. To our viewers at home, I have so many subscriptions, and I have to share this with both of you as well. I sometimes forget what I've subscribed for, and I keep paying for it. So I decided to go ahead and take a look to see if there's anything that I could delete. And I found a lot that I'm not using, but I'm not alone on this. Actually, there's 38% of people that feel that they are also paying for things that they don't need. And I think what it comes down to is value as well. So if you're paying for something but you're not receiving its value, that becomes a little bit overwhelming, and you have to know when to kind of separate the ties and break free, if you will. So on that same vein, people are they're asking themselves, am I getting the value from what I need from my advisor, what I'm paying for? So what types of questions should people be asking and thinking about when it comes to knowing that they're getting the value for their money?
Yeah, I was laughing while you were saying that because I'm the Gestapo, if you will, of our budget. And I think this comes down to budgeting, right, overall, too.
It does.
Greg was, what was it, Noom or Loom or something? There was some health app.
And like a couple of workout apps.
And shame on me, I didn't notice it sooner, but I realized we were paying like $95 a month for this app.
$95 a month.
And I marched in his office, and I'm like, what is this? This is not mine. I've looked it up. It's some kind of app. Did you download an app? And he's like, yeah, I did, you know. And I said, well, it's fine if you're using it. But if you're not using it, we're wasting money. We need to cancel it. So I went in his phone and helped him cancel it. And I think the same is true with advisors. I mean, over the years, maybe when you're working and just putting money in, it doesn't make sense to pay a lot of money for help with advising if you're good with budgeting and don't need help being disciplined of that nature. But as you reach towards that retirement date, you're thinking, okay, if I'm going to be paying a fee on my assets under management, I need to know I'm going to be getting a good deal out of it, right? I'm going to get value for that fee I'm paying versus investing myself. And I know that there are some investments or different accounts that actually have really high fees on them. And so you really need to do a cost analysis on that thing and say, okay, and I'm talking about variable annuities there, they have really high fees historically. Looking and saying, okay, for what I'm paying, am I getting the value out of it for what I'm trying to accomplish for my retirement goals? In a lot of cases, that answer is no with those vehicles. But when it comes to paying a fee for your investments, making sure the person you're working with is working in the area you need them to. So if you're in retirement, they should be looking at opportunities in investing that makes sense for where you're at in life. They're not a specialist in retirement or anything in that nature. It's not that complicated. It just needs to be someone that focuses on those areas and is not trying to be all things to all people.
Makes sense.
Absolutely, because Cynthia, anybody can sell a product.
Yes.
But not everybody is experienced enough to create a great retirement plan. And there's a difference.
Absolutely.
Because value comes in when you're actually getting what you're paying for.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's much that we buy that's the absolute cheapest that you can buy.
Yeah, same.
In fact, if I pick out 10 things, if there's 10 things I can choose from and I pick the one, not intentionally, but it's usually
One of the
more expensive ones.
Yeah, we're the same.
Now, sometimes I won't buy it just because it's the most expensive. I might choose another option, something else that would do a great job. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is not pay the most, but we're trying to get value for what we're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how do you know if you're getting value in your portfolio? Well, first of all, it's more than just money. A retirement plan is about your money, but it's more than just money. It's an investment strategy that makes sense for retirement. There's a difference.
Okay.
An income strategy that makes sense for retirement. That's different. A tax strategy that can help you navigate through retirement. A healthcare plan that helps you survive retirement, and a legacy plan that helps you leave behind what's left during your retirement. Those are all pieces that absolutely work together in such a way that those 5 things together make up a retirement plan. And not everybody needs all of them. So what I would say to you that are watching today is kind of score yourself 20 points for each of these. So if you say, I have a retirement investment plan that I feel confident is not taking more risk than I'm comfortable with, if you're 100% sure of that, then give yourself 20 points. If you're sure that you have an income plan that's dependable, that will last as long as you and your spouse live without worrying about outliving that money, give yourself 20 points for that. If you have a tax strategy that talks about Roth conversions and how to avoid future taxes, if you feel confident you have a plan in place, give yourself 20 points for that. If you have a healthcare strategy for your health insurance today and tomorrow, as well as how to cover a long-term illness, give yourself 20 points for that. And if you have an effective estate plan in place to leave behind what you want to your loved ones as confidently as you can, then give yourself 20 points for that. If you did not score 100%, then you should give us a call. If you scored 100%, wonderful. You're in great shape. You probably don't need our help. But anything less than 100, give us a call. We want to help you with that complete planning review to make sure that you and your family are going to be okay now and throughout your retirement.
And what it comes down to is you get what you pay for, and obviously you cannot put a price tag on a wonderful stress-free retirement. To our viewers at home, that number to call is on your screen, 614-336-7660. You deserve to work with a specialist in the retirement arena. You're only going to retire once. We want to make sure that you do it perfectly. That number, 614-336-7660. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you back 1 week from today on Winning Retirement Television with Greg and Kristen Taylor.